So I was looking at a map of Montreal the other day, specifically the East End, and for decades there was this just massive black hole right between the old port and the downtown core.
A void.
A total void, just this looming empty structure. And we're talking about a 19th century railway, castle-heavy, dark, built for steam train.
And robber barons.
Exactly. And somehow it's been turned into the headquarters for a cloud commerce giant. On paper, that just seems like a logistical nightmare.
It's the ultimate architectural pivot, for sure. We're talking about the Gare Viger. And you're right to be skeptical because, adaptive reuse on this scale is incredibly difficult.
Yeah, right.
You're taking a building designed to project raw industrial power and trying to retrofit it for the digital age.
Well, that's what we're diving into today. The Gare Viger project, it's what, a 1.2 million square foot redevelopment?
Yeah, massive.
And the sources we've got, these really detailed breakdowns from wikiresidence.ca and infodrone.ca. They call it a renaissance. But I want to get past the marketing fluff. This is a $300 million bet. My question is, does a tech company actually need a castle? Is this a vanity project? Or is there real utility here?
That is the big question.
Yeah.
And to get the utility, you have to look at what this building used to be. The Chateau Viger wasn't just some fancy hotel. It was the headquarters of the Canadian Pacific Railway.
Oh, wow.
In the late 1800s, the CPR was, it was the backbone of the entire Canadian economy. This building was a fortress of commerce.
Yeah, it was a flex.
A massive flex. But then, transportation shifted, cars, planes. That whole infrastructure became obsolete. So it just sat there for years, underutilized, basically a giant paperweight in the city's skyline.
So the developers, the Justa Group, they didn't just buy a building, they bought a problem.
They absolutely bought a problem.
Okay, but usually when developers buy a problem like that, the solution is just a bulldozer. It's way cheaper to knock it down and build a glass box.
So why didn't they do? Well, two big reasons. Heritage designation, obviously.
Right.
But also this economic idea of irreplaceable assets. You can't build a 19th century castle today.
No way.
The cost would be astronomical. So if you can modernize the inside while keeping that historic exterior, you have a product with zero competition. There's only one Chateau Viger.
Okay, so scarcity drives value. I get that. Which brings us to Lightspeed. They're the anchor tenant.
Right.
Huge commerce platform, born right there in Montreal. And they moved into the heritage building itself, the castle.
Oh.
But let's be real for a second. Working in a castle sounds romantic, but is it practical? You're dealing with thick stone walls that probably kill Wi-Fi.
Oh, for sure.
Drafty windows, weird floor plans. Why would a modern tech firm sign up for that kind of headache?
It comes down to what they call the war for talent. The source material really highlights this. Lightspeed isn't just selling software, they're selling a culture. And when you're trying to hire these top-tier coders who could work anywhere, Google, Amazon, a beach in Bali, you need a differentiator. Our office is a castle. Is a huge recruitment asset.
Compared to what? Our office is on the 40th floor of a beige tower.
Exactly. So the supposed inefficiency of the building actually becomes a feature, not a bug. It creates a vibe you just can't replicate.
Okay, that makes sense. It provides texture.
Precisely. But it's not just about the castle. The whole project is pitched as an ecosystem. The developers knew that a standalone office building in that part of town would die at 5 p.m.
Right, it would be a ghost town. They needed a mix.
So they bring in a hotel, the Hyatt Centric Montreal.
I saw that, the brand's first Canadian location. But again, I have to push back on the location. It's not exactly the prime tourist zone, It's near the hospital, the highway. Is a high-end hotel really viable there?
It's a calculated risk. The Hyatt Centric isn't really targeting the family on a week-long vacation to see the basilica.
Okay, so who are they targeting?
The leisure traveler. Business plus leisure. They're banking on synergy with that whole innovation district. You have tech consultants flying in for Lightspeed, medical researchers visiting the CM Super Hospital next door.
Okay, so a built-in audience.
A built-in audience of professionals who need somewhere to stay that isn't some generic airport hotel.
And I guess having the Cartier Arms restaurant downstairs helps. I read it's award-winning. That probably pulls in locals too, not just guests.
It creates a destination.
Yeah.
But the other major player here is Allied Properties REIT. They're the ones managing the modern office spaces next to the castle.
Okay, hang on. REIT. We hear this term a lot. Real Estate Investment Trust. Why does it matter that Allied is involved? What do they bring to the table?
That's a great question. A standard developer might build, fill it up with tenants, and then sell it to a pension fund to move on to the next thing.
A quick flip.
Right. A REIT especially one like Allied. They usually buy to hold. They're long-term operators. And Allied's entire strategy is built around what they call Class I properties, old industrial brick and beam buildings that creative firms love.
So they're the ones who specialize in taking old warehouses and making them cool for, like, ad agencies and tech startups.
In simple terms, yeah. Their involvement signals stability. They aren't looking to cash out. They want long-term yields from high-quality tenants.
And the stats here are pretty interesting. Despite the whole death of the office narrative, they have, what, nearly 500,000 square feet of office space? And the occupancy rate is solid.
It is. That's the part that surprises a lot of people. We keep hearing everyone's working from home.
Right, from their kitchen table.
But the data from Gare Viger suggests a flight to quality. Companies are downsizing their total square footage, sure, but they are upgrading the quality of the space they keep.
So if you're going to make your employees commute,
You can't put them in a cubicle farm anymore. You have to give them a place with amenities, with history, with good coffee.
so the mediocre offices are dying, but the castles are surviving.
That's the trend. But offices and hotels, that's only half the equation.
Mm-hmm.
To make this a real neighborhood, you need people who actually live there. You need that 247 factor.
Which brings us to the residential side. 530 St. Hubert Street, the Gare Viger Apartments, 321 units. But here's the kicker. They're all rentals. In a market where developers love to build condos, sell them pre-construction, and cash out. Why go the rental route?
It goes back to that long-term hold strategy, but it's also about demographics. They're targeting a very specific slice of the population, the transient affluent.
The transient affluent, what does that mean?
Think about who's working next door at the CAKM hospital. Medical residents, specialists on fellowship, visiting surgeons,
Okay.
or the project managers at Lightspeed on a 2-year contract. These are people with high incomes who want luxury living, concierge, gym, rooftop pool, but they don't want the golden handcuffs of a 30-year mortgage. They need flexibility.
That makes a ton of sense. I saw the rent start around $5,580 for a studio. For Montreal, that is not cheap. That prices out a lot of the artists and creatives who usually make a neighborhood feel cool.
It does. This is, without a doubt, a gentrifying force. It's priced for the professional class. But from an urban planning perspective, adding those 321 units provides what they call human density.
Break that down for us. Human density.
It's the critical mass of people you need to make a street feel safe and vibrant. If you only have offices, the street is dead by 6 p.m.
Right.
But when you add 321 apartments, you have people walking dogs at 7 a.m., buying milk at 9 p.m., grabbing a late-night drink. That presence puts eyes on the street. It lowers crime and creates a sense of community.
It stops the whole area from feeling like a ghost town on the weekends.
Exactly. And to support that human density, you need public space. You can't just have concrete canyons. Which brings us to the courtyard. And I think this is one of those brilliant parts of the project.
The courtyard. 36,000 square feet. Designed by NIP Passage. I looked at the before photos. It was literally a surface parking lot, just a slab of asphalt.
A classic urban heat island.
Explain that concept.
Well, asphalt and concrete, they absorb the sun's radiation all day, and then they radiate it back out at night. In the summer, these heavily paved areas, what planners call mineralized sectors, can be several degrees hotter than the surrounding area.
So it's basically a giant radiator that never turns off.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So by ripping up that parking lot and installing 36,000 square feet of gardens and soft landscaping, they're demineralizing the core of the block. It acts like a localized cooling system.
Wow.
It also helps manage stormwater runoff so the sewers don't overflow every time there's a heavy rain. It's functional infrastructure, but it's masquerading as a pretty park.
And they added those light installations by Light Emotion, right, to keep it feeling safe at night. But is it actually public? Or is it one of those private public spaces where security guards chase you off?
The intention is for it to be a public thoroughfare. And this is key to the idea of connectivity. Before this project, the whole area was a barrier. You had the hospital on one side, the waterfront on the other.
And this massive, dark railway complex in the middle, acting like a wall. You had to walk all the way around it.
You did. Now, the project acts as a physical bridge. It stitches the city back together. You can walk right from the hospital, through the courtyard, down to the water. It invites movement.
That stitching idea is interesting. It's almost like the railway used to connect the country, but it divided the neighborhood.
And now the redevelopment connects the neighborhood. That's a beautiful way to put it. And that connectivity translates directly into economic impact. We mentioned the $300 million investment.
A lot of zeros.
A lot of zeros. But look at the traffic estimates. The site expects daily foot traffic of over 5,000 people.
5,000 people a day. That's the population of a small town moving through one city block every single day.
Correct. And that's where the spillover effect kicks in. If you're a small coffee shop owner or a boutique in Old Montreal, you used to die in February. The tourists were gone.
Ghost town.
Right. Now you have a permanent population of residents and a daily influx of 5,000 office workers and hotel guests. It flattens the seasonality. You don't have to make all your money in July anymore.
It stabilizes the local economy. And for the city of Montreal, I mean, they've turned a tax-neutral site into a massive tax generator. Property values around there must have soared.
They have. But let's play devil's advocate again. Does this push out the existing community? We talked about the high rents. Is there a downside to this shiny new engine of commerce?
That's the question.
There's always a risk of displacement when property values rise. The soul of a neighborhood is often tied to its affordability. But in this specific case, remember what was there before: a parking lot and an abandoned building.
Not a low-income housing complex that got bulldozed.
Exactly. It was an industrial void. So in terms of direct displacement, the impact is lower than in other gentrification projects. But the pressure on surrounding rents will certainly be felt.
So it's more like it's filling a vacuum rather than pushing people out directly.
Correct. And the argument from the analysts in our source material is that the soul they're restoring is the social function. One of them said the challenge was not just to restore a building, but to give a soul back to a neighborhood that had lost its social function.
Social function, that's a key phrase. Because a parking lot has a function, parking cars, but it has zero social function.
And a 19th century railway palace that's all boarded up has zero social function. By layering all these uses, work, sleep, eat, play, they're trying to manufacture a community from scratch.
It really feels like Montreal is doubling down on this idea of the resilient metropolis. We're not a manufacturing hub anymore. We're a knowledge hub. And these buildings are the physical manifestation of that shift.
It's the shift from moving goods to moving data. The Château Vichy used to manage the movement of wheat and timber across the continent.
And now
with Lightspeed in there, it manages the movement of digital transactions across the globe. The function is curiously similar, even if the technology has completely changed.
that is a fascinating parallel. The rails are gone, but the network remains.
And it serves as a model for other cities. I mean, we have listeners all over the world. Every city has these white elephants: the old textile mill, the decommissioned power plant, the brutalist government building that everyone hates.
The eyesores?
We see them as eyesores because we lack imagination. We see crumbling brick and broken windows. Developers usually just see a spreadsheet with too much red ink.
Right.
But Gare Viger proves that if you have the capital and the patience to deal with the heritage constraints, the payoff is a product that cannot be commoditized.
You can't 3D print history.
No, you cannot.
So we've covered the transformation of the chateau, the recruitment strategy for Lightspeed, the financial logic of the REITs, the environmental impact of the courtyard. It really does feel like a win, but a very expensive, very complex win.
It is high-risk, high-reward urbanism.
I want to leave our listeners with something to look for in their own cities. Next time you drive past that boarded-up factory or that weird empty lot in the middle of town, don't just look at the grime.
Look at the bones.
Look at the bones and ask yourself, could this be a tech campus? Could this be a vertical farm? Could this be the next living room for the neighborhood? Because Gare Viger proves that obsolete is just a temporary state.
It's just waiting for the right vision.
I'm going to look at that old warehouse down the street from me a little differently now. Maybe I should buy it.
You might need a few $100 million first.
Details. Details. Thanks for listening to this deep dive into the Gare Viger. We'll catch you on the next one.
Goodbye.